Hello dears, and welcome back to the Ration Book. Grab yourself a brew. There's a lot to catch up on. So, oh gosh, where to begin? I've found a cottage. So, Rebecca is on the move. Yay! So, throughout January, I went and looked at a lot of properties. You know, I've been looking at a lot of properties. I wouldn't say it's exactly what I was after. It's beautiful. It's beautiful nonetheless. And once I've painted it and I've, Rebecca-fied it, it'll be lovely, I've got dreams of a Belfast sink in the kitchen and maybe an Aga. Ooh. I can't share anything with you about it, but I can show you the view from the driveway. It's the oldest house in the village. And it's one of those villages where the telephone box is full of books. So I'm good for a story when I'm twiddling my thumbs. I also have a new job. I am doing shop work again. That's Thursday to Sunday I'm doing shop work. On a Wednesday I go to a soup kind of club, craft club, and that's where I take my knitting and stuff. So that's all rather fun.
You're on your own today?
Yeah. No, the other ladies are at the MRC.
Oh, right. Oh,
So,
you're not there, are you?
Yeah, but I much prefer this.
Yeah, how come you're not on there?
You what, dear?
How come you're not there then?
Well, I prefer this. There's 20 of them or so in a room that is a third of the size of this.
There were four ladies here last week from the Morning Read Centre.
Yeah.
They said they were going to come again, but obviously they decided to go back.
They might turn up. But
Yeah, well.
I've turned up anyway.
Yeah, that's nice. Good.
Bless you. Thank you for the tea.
That's okay.
The first thing I've been working on is this, my skirt. Now, I have completed it. I mean, it's inside out at the moment, but this is it. I was holding it together with safety pins, but then Irene from the sewing club, she said, don't do safety pins because the work moves. It's not very good. You need these like craft clips, but I don't have any of those, so it's laundry pegs. So I just need to stitch it up basically. I just don't like sewing. I can't. I'm not a sewer. It doesn't thrill me to have to sew. I'll get round to it, but yeah, it doesn't thrill me to have to sew stuff up. I mean, I've got hot water bottle covers over there. I've knit a couple of hot water bottle covers, and they just need stitching up. Ugh. Yes, and then elastic goes here, and you turn over the ribbing, and there we are. So that's my 1969 skirt, knit up. That's from this book, which is the family knitting book. There's a trio actually. So the next one that I'm going to make out of the trio is this one in the middle. And that'll be to go with the red version of this. So I can make an outfit because I've got plenty of that red yarn left. But the one that I've just sort of finished is this one here, which is the rib skirt in tweed. So that's my first garment, my one of 12 down, because if you remember, I'm making 12 garments in 12 months this year. So the next one that I'm working on, out of my trusty Vogue book, it is from 1952. Oh, I was watching the Titfield Thunderbolt the other day, and that's a 1952 based film. 1952 seems to be my year at the moment. There you go. So slips on that. So it was originally a gentleman's sort of sporting top, but I just thought, yeah, that does. And it just so happens that they very handily used it as so I can follow the pattern, the Fair Raleigh pattern on this. It's in 2-ply. So this is not a quick knit. This is not going to knit up swiftly. But, so what I've done is, I've had to rib on 12s, and then I've moved on to 10s, 3mm, for the body. And I've sort of wrapped one yarn around Millie's dinner box. And it literally, I've never worked with such fine yarn. It's crazy. It's just 2 strands held together. And even that was giving slightly too much on the gauge. So I've had to go down needle sizes to try and get the right gauge. But yeah, 2 strands. So this is going to take a while, chaps. For saying it's only 2 little strands, it is actually knitting up quite nice, you know. It's going to be very light on, very light and flowy and drapey, I think, but it's still going to be thick enough. I've got a lot of 1930s, 40s underwear patterns in 1 and 2 ply, and I think if you were using the pure wool, it would be, I can feel how it would be so warm yet uncumbersome. So yeah, I'm using all manner of different colours on that. There's about 5 different colours. So the next colour that I've got to sort out is this one. So we're going green and aqua. Green's the main colour, and then all of these other colours that I've got are going to like pop. So now I did have a go. Well, that's just a pair of socks. Now I did have a go at making a pattern out of this book, which is the 2-tone turban. The original colours were red and grey, so I kind of got as near as I could. Unfortunately, I started knitting and it just didn't knit up right. Now this silver one says it's Uppingham Yarns mercurised cotton, which is all rather fun, in the colour stone. So I thought, okay, well they're probably all about the same. You know, they look the same, the cones wise. But when I knit this up, it was like metallic. It wasn't like a proper fabric. It just wasn't going to work. So unfortunately, I've had to unravel that. But at least I now know. But that does feel a bit rougher in comparison to this. But I'm thinking a 2 colourway turban. I'll try it again, but I'll try it in these colours because I think it'll suit me. So I'll wind those colours onto more of Mills's food boxes, and give that one a go. But yes, I thought with my new hair, I gave myself a trim the other day. Gave myself like a 40s bob, and I thought, yeah, I could have my turban on with my new hair. Another project. I've got a lot cast on this month, chaps. I think it's because it's all just, at the moment, life is just, so it's all rather exciting. So I just keep casting things on, you know. But there aren't all things that I'm absolutely going to finish, but it's just excitement, you know, it's excitement. Anyway, I don't know what possessed me. I really don't. But the other day, I went and bought myself a suspender belt and a couple of pairs of stockings. I think it's because I want to wear more vintage, and you've got to get the foundations right. You've got to get the base, you know, the foundation wear spot on. I went on What Katie Did website. Her stuff looks fabulous, don't get me wrong, and it looks very authentic, but it looks very tight around the natural waist of a lady, and that's just going to cause me aggro. So I went looking for a pattern, and I found a suspender belt pattern, which is on knitty.com. So it's a free pattern, and I looked at it and I thought, actually, that looks, not only does that look rather fabulous, especially if you did it in a lovely, like, you know, luxurious yarn, but also it looks quite comfy, you know, and I'm sorry, but comfort, you know, rules at the moment. It really does. Again, using some scrap yarn that I've got, I have cast on my suspender belt. I don't know what it's going to end up like, but yes, so it's got some yarn overs. I think that's where it's just like either it's a detail or you put some ribbon in or something, make it look pretty, make it look very nice. But yeah, so this is scrap yarn that I'm using, double knit, and you know what, it's not every day that one gets to wear a hand knitted suspender belt, is it? But I did look into other patterns, and there was a 1930s crochet pattern for it. So they were out there, they were out there. And then another one that I've cast on, which I had to rip back the first time round because I thought this isn't going to work. Knickerbockers! So they're from an old patterns knitting book, which I got last year from my caravan holiday when I went around all the charity shops. And I thought, oh, I've got to give those a go. So I probably actually won't get these made for this side of the winter. I think by the time I actually get around to finishing these, because I'm super hyped now for my little vest, which I'm giving myself 3 months to make that because of just how thin the yarn is. But it might knit up quicker. Who knows? I don't know. Oh, hang on, I'm all tangled. Oh, there we go. There we are. Yeah. Right. So that's what I've got on the go. And looking at the ration for clothings, rationing for clothing came in June 1941, and the brand CC41 came about. That's the utility wear. That's where they tried to make the most out of the little that they had, And it started with, I think, 66 coupons, and you used your spare, in your ration book, you had a spare Marge coupons page, so they just used that. But eventually, over the years, your clothing coupons were taken down to 20. 20 was the lowest. So I've been looking at what can I buy for 20 coupons, and I am, it's ridiculous because it's self-imposed. But I think to myself, no, this is important. What would I buy with my 20 coupons? Because I spent 5 on my stockings and suspender belt, because a pair of stockings is 2 points, a suspender belt no bigger than 10-inch width is 1 point. So you think I've got 15 left, and you think, okay, right, well, I've got plenty of yarn to make stuff, so I don't necessarily need to buy any more garments per se. So yes, I think it's going to be a pair of new shoes. I think that's 5 points. And then 2 new blouses. I think they're about 4 points each. So then that leaves me with 2 points. And 1 point would get you 2 ounces of yarn. So that's a 50-gram ball. And you can see why knitting in 2 and 3 ply was really popular. But also because you are sat with nothing really to do much of an evening, other than, if you're getting blitzed, you're down the shelter. But if you're sat with very little to do, then you just sit knitting, don't you? And these very thin yarns on very thin needles, they're going to take a while. And because you are so restricted in the amount of yarn that you can buy, a little is going to go a long way on those 2 and 3 ply garments. But also, it just keeps the hands busy, doesn't it? Anyway, moving on to books this month. I've been very restrictive. I've only bought myself a couple of books. So I went round my local antique shop and I found this, the Ration Book Diet. Now, initially I wasn't too sure about it, and then I've had a good sit down and I've had a good read through. And yes, it's rather good, especially if you're brand new to the subject. It covers pretty much everything you'd need to know. It does also have quite a few recipes, and it separates it into the seasons. There are unique recipes, such as you've got the strawberry and mint soup, so I'm going to have a go at that. You've got things like a rhubarb bread and butter pudding. You've got potato and rosemary bread. So you've got Dr. Carrot, but I learnt that actually Walt Disney created Clara Carrot because Dr. Carrot didn't really capture the imagination of the kids as well as the Ministry of Food thought he would. So Walt Disney came along and created a series of vegetable characters, and one of them was Clara Carrot, and I think she was a slightly bigger hit, but you never hear of her, do you? And this is what I find with the propaganda, is that, especially reading through these diaries that I have, that we can only make of history what is now documented. And, so we create a picture out of the propaganda materials. But the reality is, when you read the books, when you read the diaries of the people there, it's not it doesn't always ring true, you know? Things like the ration, that you were guaranteed every element of your ration. You weren't. And what I've recently learnt from this book as well is that 2.2 of your meat ration you had to take in corned beef. I never knew that. But I think you got 1 shilling 2pence. I think. I might be wrong. I mean, it fluctuated, but I think that's about the general sort of average. So 2pence worth of meat ration had to be corned beef, and then whatever else you wanted, you could have. But, you know, I didn't know that. So there you are. Corned beef hash, everyone. But yes. And so this book is, it's full of info. They've really done their research, and they've really put it together in a way that, especially if you're new to it, that it's a good introduction. But the more quirky recipes in this book have come from, and this is why I just had to buy it, because it just intrigued me, and it's from this. It's the Food Facts for the Kitchen Front, with a foreword by Lord Walton himself. I think it's a 1941 book, and it, out of all of the books that I have, especially the old ones, the cookery books, this is the one that it really is wartime fare. And if you're going to find, I know, chicken skin crisps or whatever else, it's going to be in this book. I mean, there's some interesting recipes. But yes, Lord Walton, he wrote the foreword for it. And actually, this hasn't been flicked through that badly. So I'm tempted to make a book cover for all of my old books. Because when I was in school, you had to make covers for your books to try and keep the books in good nick. So I'm tempted to do that, actually. Try and, protect them a little bit. But yes, the foreword here from Lord Walton. He says, "I should not care to present a copy of this book to the ghost of Mrs. Beeton. That generous phantom would no doubt be shocked by the simplicity of the recipes given here." I like that word simplicity in my cooking. Simplicity is great. "It is a plain production, a wartime production, pure and simple. The ingredients are pure and the methods of preparing them are simple. But there is more to it than that. It is not a collection of makeshifts. Its lessons in cookery and food values hold good for times of peace and plenty. Publishers frequently express hopes that their new masterpieces will go down to posterity. It is good to think that posterity will learn from those who had to cater and cook in Britain's front line. Not long ago, in a grocer's, I overheard a conversation between 2 women shopping at the counter. One said to the other, 'After all, housewives are war workers, same as anybody else, aren't they?' They are. And that is why I can present this book to them. I hope that they will find it a serviceable weapon." And there we are, Lord Walton's signature. You get an awful lot of this with the food values and stuff, because the First World War, we didn't know absolutely anything about it. It was only through the fact of the sheer shock of the state of the young whippersnappers, the young boys being drafted in, just how horrid they were, like full of rickets and all that sort of stuff, that the actual, is it Lord Dumbarton? There was a scientist and a lord, and they looked into it scientifically. What is food made of, and what does the body need? And that's where we know about nutrition and vitamins, minerals, proteins, fats, all that sort of stuff, calcium. And that through the 30s, especially in 1936, there was potentials in the corridors of power where they kind of thought, oh, there's going to be rumblings. Oh, dear. There's this chap called Hitler. And so they really started to put some focus on it because they needed people to be healthy. So they had a fighting force. And because of all that hard work from all the scientists, we now know about food, you know, and they kind of eliminated rickets and all manner of other things that, you know, are a Victorian disease. So, yeah. Anyway, thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you again soon. Take care. Bye.